Gooch.
That is Keys. That over there is Big Chief Shawn. And this is the RogueHead Huddle. We
Right.
appreciate anybody that watches this content. Check us out on RGR. We're all there. We're on Twitter. Check out Big Chief Shawn's channel.
When was the moment that you knew we were going to lose the game?
Me, I'll tell you honestly. 3rd and 1, second half, the second quarter, 3rd and 1, no score. Right there. You can see the face. And y'all watch that game as well as I. Y'all who watching this, y'all watch that game too. Y'all see the enlightenment in the Bengals fans when they didn't make that score? They were happy as heck. Or it's either that or when our quarterback tried to call a timeout that we didn't have. It's kind of like, that's it. We're done here. He's like, timeout. That's right. That's right. A lot of people forget that. That's right, y'all. Patrick Mahomes pulled a Chris Webber. Absorb that. He pulled a Chris Webber. That's why I was like, we're done here. We're done. It's fine.
I want to be fair to Pat and say that, all right, obviously that was one of Andy's, that was, retro Andy with a time management screw up there, calling the timeout instead of throwing the challenge. But I also want to say that we still should have had a timeout left, right? We called our 3rd timeout and the Bengals had an injured player on the field. So that should have been charged to the Bengals for an injury timeout. So we should have gotten to keep our 3rd timeout. So that might have been what was in Patrick's mind. He might have not have realized that was charged to the Chiefs because the Bengals player was the one who was on the ground injured.
That's true.
So, still, that play, the one, he shouldn't have thrown the ball to Tyreek, and I think he already admitted that wasn't even supposed to be an option for him. It was supposed to be a throw over the middle in the end zone or nothing, and he just got greedy there by his own admission. But I think somebody else pointed out, Travis wasn't even on the field for that play. That 3rd down play that he threw it short to Tyreek, Travis wasn't even on the field for that. And there's no excuse for that in my mind. Mitch Schwartz said, I believe it was Mitch, it might have been his brother Jeff, but I think it was Mitch said, he would have liked to seen the Chiefs go bigger on that play, with at least 2 tight ends, really pushing the threat of a run. Whereas, it looked like it was an RPO and it didn't look like, like the Bengals bought it at all. And it actually looked like if Patrick had handed the ball off, McKinnon's, running right into the end zone. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there. But, whatever. Gooch, what about you? When was the moment that you knew we were going to lose the game?
The interception. The first one. By the lineman. The body language after that. not from just Mahomes, but from the Chiefs overall. It all changed. And then I absolutely knew at overtime because we were way too excited for those 3 points just to tie the game. When you really should have been like, how the hell did we get here? And then I would assume after that on a tie, you would come out angry because you're the better team. All the way across the board.
Yeah.
So as soon as overtime happened, I was like, well, this game's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no joke too. Quarterback and not being homerish here, being realistic without the meltdown, emotionally pulling us one way or the other. We had the better quarterback. We by far had the better offensive line in the game. We had the better wide receiver number 1 in the game. We had the better tight end number 1 in the game. I mean, you could go better tight end number 2 in the game. I think Bell's that much better than the Bengals backup. And they were without Uzuma for the rest of the game too. So they did that with their backup tight end. With the exception of Mixon being better than anything we had at running back, our offense, across the board, we were a better offense. And I think you can say the same with the defense. Our defensive line, the players we had on there, individually, the players we had on the defense and the secondary, and maybe even the linebackers, thinking of Gay and Bolton, our defense across the board was better than the Bengals. For me, I kind of want to be there with both of you guys. Anybody in the Discord, could tell you that was part of the in-game stream. I said when we got the ball the last time, in the second quarter, I said if we don't end up doubling up, here to go into halftime and then getting the ball back, I said if we don't get at least 10 points, I'm going to be mad. So you can imagine how I felt when we got 0 points out of those two possessions. For me, though, I think it was that third down play, the second and third down play there at the end of the fourth quarter, because that whole drive, right, that drive sparked, it looked like the offense from the first half. We marched all the way down the field. We got within 5 yards of scoring a touchdown, and we got to that first and goal. And we started passing it, right? Trying to outguess the Bengals. And Patrick, took a sack on second down when he was running around, and then the strip sack on third down, and we have to kick a field goal there. Like what I saw on second down and third down, that
I got one for you. You said our defense overall was better. Was it though? Because I recall Pat going down a lot many more times than Burrow went down this game for our defensive line to do better than their offensive line. It seems like
well, no, I said individual. Individual, right? Individual players.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about how they performed. We're talking about, individual players and how, if you were to give letter grades to, like Madden, ratings or whatever to the units, our units were better, are better, made out of better players. But I think that what you brought up there, I think that's more about the coaching and what Spags was doing versus what Cincinnati was doing. People were trashing our offensive line, but when the Bengals were dropping 8, Patrick still had over 3 seconds to throw. Of course he was going to get sacked. They had 8 players in coverage, including a spy. And so the minute that Patrick was trying to get someone open on a pass play and he left the pocket, the spy was coming at him, and he was running away from his offensive line and running himself into pressure. The Mahomes meltdown. Now, we've kind of already hit on it a bit, and I've kind of given my perspective that I think it was, in a lot of ways, I think it was more about Andy's play calling, and I'm going to reserve a little bit, of judgment here until I go back and know for sure that Patrick wasn't just keeping the ball on RPOs and throwing passes. Now that would change some things for me if I see that. But for the most part, my perspective is that really when you're facing what Patrick faced, when you're passing the ball and a team is dropping 8 into coverage, including one of those people being a spy, and you're being forced to hold the ball, forever, and nobody's open, and you can't even roll out anymore, right? Like Patrick was number 1 in basically everything outside the pocket, like yards, touchdowns, all these things. When he can get out of the pocket, completions, he's number 1. Yards, he was number 1. Touchdowns, he was number 1. And he wasn't able to do that because they spied him, but he also wasn't able to find anybody open because they were dropping 8. So it's like, what do you expect to happen? Because they were rushing 3 guys. Eventually those 3 guys are getting home because Mahomes is trying to move, and because he's got to try to get somebody open. and he's running away from his offensive lineman. So to me, that was the meltdown for the most part. Now, Goose, you brought up the first interception there in our last topic, and I have no idea what his mindset was on that. That play was a creative play. I'll give Reed that. What he had, he had Tyreek Hill and Kelsey doing their own thing. And then on the right side, it was supposed to be a running back screen, which was there, right? But that's part of the problem is that Patrick got pressured because he ignored the screen. So, those guys came free on the right side because it was a screen to the right. And then he tries to throw it to the left, and the defensive lineman, give the guy props, BJ Hill or whoever it was, jumped up and batted it. What defensive linemen are supposed to do? Are you listening to me right now? Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Jerron Reed. When you can't get to the quarterback, stick your hands up and make his job harder. And, so he didn't take the screen there. And it might have been wide open, and who knows what would have happened. It couldn't have been much worse than throwing that interception there. But other than that play, again, I might find out that most of those passes were RPOs and Patrick was keeping it. And now now I have a complete different issue, than it being Reed. It's Pat. But until I see that, I don't know for sure. So right now, this is what I'm saying. So that's my view on the meltdown. I also want to point out, though, that Patrick is the guy who, when somebody else, does something bad, McColl fumbles, someone drops a big ball or, whatever the case, CEH fumbles. Patrick is the guy who walks over to them and gets their head back in the game. And I want to ask who the player was or who the coach was on our team who walked over to Patrick and got his head in the game. Who was Patrick for him? All right, I'm done with this one now.
You gonna take this with Gooch?
Oh, I'm glad you asked.
That's why I did.
On the Big Chief Shawn show, I said that if you watch the Rogue Life, I nailed down all of Patrick's weaknesses coming out of college. And I said on the Big Chief Shawn show that you saw them all in the second half. And if you haven't watched the Big Chief Shawn show yet and you're watching me, go back and watch the Big Chief Shawn show. Now that's all said and done, I think that the main one, there's several things. One, his decision-making just went out the window. Two, I think he wanted the big play to get his confidence back. His confidence was busted.
Yeah.
The third and short at the goal line before half, the INT, I think his confidence was gone. And so then he just resorted back to what he knew. Playing playground football, looking for those certain guys like this was Texas Tech. The goal line where he handed it to Jared McKinnon, that was an RPO. But he held it. The goal line play where we could have won, he was staring down Kelsey, but Pringle was running across the goal line. And he got gun shy. Never seen it before. I mean, I think he just watched the biggest brain fart on the biggest stage that's not the Super Bowl happen at the worst possible time. Because I really believe at the one that Reed is calling run plays. At least on first and second down, he has a history of doing it, even with Damien. I don't know. I hope he, whatever was bothering him, gets fixed. His confidence comes back or whatever. It was weird. It was almost like walking into the Twilight Zone just to go from 19 of 22, 200 some odd yards, and 2 or 3 touchdowns to being Taylor Heineke from the Washington football team in one half. I'm sorry, the Washington Commanders.
Stupidest name I've ever heard. I'm sorry.
But that's all I got. That's all I got. I think his confidence was busted. I think you know what? I hate to say this. Everybody was saying how broken he was 1 through 6. I think he was broken the second half.
I'll be right up there in a second.
Uh-oh. Dinner bell's ringing. We're going to have to cut it down, boys.
Oh.
Mama Shawn said, yo.
Yeah, when she comes to calling, I come and run. But the meltdown for me, though, it was one of the saddest displays I've ever seen from a quarterback, especially from an elite quarterback. You know, first it was that anger. I was pissed. I mean, everybody was pissed. You know, but as the half kept going, you just felt bad. Like, you know, just that what the hell? Why is this happening? Why is it happening to him? You know, you don't want to add fuel to the fire when it comes to hate. But damn, they had gasoline. It was the worst. It just to know that not only was he, like, we were all upset, you could just know that the entire NFL world was having a ball watching him implode. Because everybody
you know what, though?
They got tired of talking about him
though,
like he was the greatest thing to slice bread, man.
You know what, though? If you wanna take some silver lining behind it, and I'm not a Kool-Aid snorter, nor am I a haterade drinker. And we like to say here on the huddle that we give you both sides of the coin. Here's the other side to that meltdown. Every single Hall of Fame quarterback has had one.
Yeah.
Yes. Peyton's was in a Super Bowl. Brady's was in a divisional round when he got beat by the Jets. And Mark Sanchez.
I will be right back.
Ours happened to happen here.
Yeah. You know, I wanted to go back because I think that, I don't remember if it was you or Shawn now, brought up, you know, an interesting point. And I think what makes it so hard, you know, to process is you go from last week's game against, you know, a fantastic, you know, the supposed #1 defense in the NFL, right, with the Bills. And you top it off with Mahomes, you know, with the 44 yards in 10 seconds and then an overtime touchdown, right? Completely unstoppable. And then against a far inferior opponent, yes, I'm saying it. I don't care if you don't agree with it, Bengals fans. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Against a far inferior opponent, this happens. And it's, you know, that I think that's what makes it more incomprehensible, that contrast between the two games, you know, the contrast between the two endings is what makes it hard to process, that a player who can be that great can ever have such a poor performance. And, you know, I've given Reed most of the blame, but to be fair, there are some clips where you can clearly see that something happened with Mahomes' mechanics, where his mechanics were off again. You know, including that throw to Travis on that third down, that nice one that he just floated there on the sideline. By the way, on the hike where Creed hiked the ball into the ground and it basically rolled to Pat and he had to pull it up, you know, And so I don't know if there's something where, he's getting freaked out and, that's putting extra stress on his body and that's messing with his mechanics or what. But, there are instances of plays like that where his mechanics were off. And of course, we saw him, overthrow CEH, and we saw some other, bad throws from him. And clearly he did make bad decisions, like I said, with that screen pass where he decided to still go the other way, and he was getting rushed from the side where he was supposed to be throwing the screen. And so, for those of us who had good experiences with our dads, I think this is like when you have a dad who, when you're little, they can, they're like your superhero. They can do everything. And then as you get a little bit older and you ask more from them, you finally get that point where they can't do what you ask them to do. And they lose some of their luster. Or you can just take it to superheroes, if you like superheroes. It's like when the superhero can do all these things, and then all of a sudden, because the storyline has to have that in it, right? Has to have something to overcome where the superhero, is just not able to overcome. Um, and I think there's something, to that in this kind of thing with the meltdown, just like the contrast,
I,
contrast of first half to second
I
half,
also want to
contrast of
point.
last week to this week.
I also want to point out that the mechanics thing is something you and I have been screaming about for 8 months.
Oh, you.
We have said that footwork and all of that, and you said it. Like he wasn't planting again. Remember, I was like, he wasn't planting. His throws were off. I mean, you started seeing it in the second half. It was almost like, I don't want to say playing scared, but it was almost like the game sped up again for him instead of slowing down, like it's supposed to or like it normally does. It was almost like it sped up, and now he was trying too hard to force the issue to kind of make it slow down for him again, and we saw all of bad Pat.
Yeah. And, again, that's why I go back to, the dropping 8. You know, as a quarterback, if you're passing, I think that is going to cause you to be panicked because nobody's open. Your routes that, usually players are open for, they're no longer open. And now you can't even run outside the pocket because there's someone spying you who's right there rushing at you automatically now. And so, I can completely imagine, why those situations would cause panic because half of his second half dropbacks, he was facing, you know, 8 guys in coverage. Other teams hadn't done that before because they were getting by, right? Until the Bills, for the most part, teams were getting by, not having to drop 8. They were just dropping 7 and they were rushing 4. And the Bengals learned from the Bills and they went to an 8th guy. Well, in this case, they basically kept the 7, but then the 8th person was spying Patrick, and that was, the big difference. They weren't going to let him get outside of the pocket. And, on our side, our defensive line wasn't, keeping our edges weren't keeping their line integrity. Like they were letting Burrow get outside the pocket. Frank did that way too much. And so I don't know. Like I was saying with Shawn, it's all frustrating.
Well, here's the thing, and it's another thing I want to point out, and I'm glad you brought it up. You're facing 8, you're rushing 3. Where was the scrambles like he did against the Bills? Where were the runs? You're facing 3, which means you've got 5 on 3. There has to be some running lanes. Why didn't we take off?
Because of the spy. The person they had spying did a great job of staying where they needed to be. And, yeah, you would think that earlier on you would be able, if they had recognized what the Bengals were doing and made adjustments, maybe they could have blocked for that and taken advantage of that, but they didn't. And so whenever Patrick, the spy was basically just sitting there in a short zone, and when Patrick was taken off to a side, that's when the spy was rushing.
Well, I think you even said on the Big Chief Shawn show that Dallas will put 2 blockers back there with Zeke and let Zeke run. So why not take a page from the Bills playbook and get you some designed runs, a big old lineman back there, Allegretti and Prince Winnebago, and just tell them to plow the road.
Right. Yeah. There were some cool runs in the Dallas 49ers game that I don't know if Kellen Moore designed them himself, but regardless, there was at least that one run where they came out with 2 offensive linemen in the backfield with Zeke to block for him, and so they had 7 offensive linemen blocking on that play. How are you not going to get some? Of course, we could do some great play action pass with that. We have some offensive linemen who can catch. Let them report eligible. Let them go back there, run an RPO. They can block. They can go out and catch.
All right. We appreciate anybody who watches this content, whether religiously or passing. Go back. Check out all the other stuff on RGR. Me and Keys with the huddle. Big Chief Shawn over there with the tailgating. And check his channel out. Subscribe. That man has over 500 subscribers. We're trying to get him to 1,000 or more and keep going. We've got the live stream. We've got the live stream Q&A on Monday. Chief in the North on Thursday. Game plans. The draft is coming. Ryan is on Locked On NFL Draft. He's on Locked On Chiefs. I think he has his own brew. Check out the RGR store. Get you a hoodie and a mask. If you're not a member, become one. Join the Discord. Me, Keys, Big Chief, the Mod Father's in there. He also does the picks pool on the channel. We're all there. I'm on the Twitter. Big Chief Shawn's on the Twitter. Keys is on the Twitter. Ryan's on the Twitter. We're all there too. If you have any questions or anything like that, like, comment, share, subscribe. Obviously to me and Keys in the Huddle, to Big Chief. Above all else, make sure you tell somebody you love them. We're all serious about that. It is never too late to give somebody their flowers. We prefer you give them to them while they can still enjoy them.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. We hope you guys enjoy this. Peace out.
Peace.
Catch you in the next one.
Get some popcorn.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.